As I prepared for our 75th High Holy Days, I dug into our synagogue's archives. I found a temple bulletin article from 1955. I want to share a little wisdom from it. It reads, "We cannot too strongly urge everyone to exercise great caution in driving on our temple grounds. Stand on the side and watch for a few minutes. See for yourself how foolishly dangerous it is to let your kiddies get out of your car anywhere except directly on the sidewalks. In all capitals, don't stop in the middle of the drive and let your children walk across the drive. That's what you've been doing." It's 2025, and I can safely say some things never change. The cars might look different, but Temple Emanu-El's parking lot still has the power to test our patience, our driving skills, and maybe even our faith. In fact, I sometimes think the truest sign of a committed Jewish community isn't reflected in the sanctuary or in the classroom, but it's in the parking lot. If you can survive drop-off on a religious school morning without losing your temper, you are truly righteous. Some people say the Akedah is the ultimate test of faith. I think it might be merging onto East Broad after services. What the 1955 bulletin really shows us is that Temple Emanu-El has always been more than a building. It's been a living, breathing community. Even before the walls were raised, people already understood that a synagogue wasn't just about brick and mortar, but about the Jewish lives unfolding within it. Rabbi Ezra Spicehandler, our synagogue's first rabbi, captured this beautifully when he wrote in 1951, "As the new year dawns, we of Temple Emanu-El are ready to erect our spiritual home, our own temple. Think of the babies who shall be named here, of the children educated in the traditions of Israel, of the bar mitzvahs, the confirmations. Think too of the moments of sadness, the heavy burdens of grief. Think of our identification with our Jewish past and the glories of our Jewish future. Homes are built of more than mortar and brick. Temples are built of more than pledges and drives. Important as they are, they've erected by Jewish devotion, by service, and by dedication to Israel and God. You are a part of its beauty and its glory. This is your spiritual home." If you listen closely, you can hear how Rabbi Spicehandler's words echo the ancient wisdom of our Torah. The Israelites, too, had to learn that the sanctuary was never really about the structure itself, but about the holiness created within it. In the famous verse from Exodus, the Israelites were commanded to build the tabernacle. We read, "Va'asu li mikdash," "Let them make me a sanctuary, v'shachanti b'tocham," that I may dwell among them. Commentators have paused for centuries on the last word. It is not bitocho, in it, but bitocham, among them. Wouldn't it make more sense for the text to say, "Build me a sanctuary so I may dwell in it"? That's how the words of the ancient Near East worked. Temple and shrines were thought to be homes of God and goddesses. Build the house, place the item, invite the deity in. But here the Torah says something new, something bold, something revolutionary. God does not seek a house. God seeks a people. The Israelites built the sanctuary, the Mishkan, not so God had a place to live, but so they would have a way to feel God's presence in their lives. The sanctuary was a symbol, a tool, a reminder that holiness was close at hand. Yes, the tabernacle was magnificent. Later, the temple in Jerusalem even more so. After that, synagogues across the world were grand and humble, vast and small. But the true holiness was never in the stones of the walls, not in the pillars or the carvings. The real holiness has always been in the people, in the extraordinary souls who walk through those doors, and those who gather with purpose, who pray, who learn, who serve. That is where God chooses to dwell, among us. And that is what has made our synagogue so special for the past 75 years. The members that have come through the doors, the people who have sat and continue to pray in these pews, the congregants who volunteer, who learn, who celebrate joys and sorrow, the over 1,050 member families who celebrate the days of awe together. That is what makes us Temple Emanu-El, where God is with us. We are grandparents and young parents. We're single, married, and divorced. We are gay and straight. We are Sephardic. We are Jews of color. We are Democrats, Republicans, and independents. We are lifelong Reformed Jews, conservative Jews, Jews by choice, and people of other faiths who share in Jewish life. And in terms of participation, we are marginals and watchers, regulars and loyalists. Our continued growth is a blessing, literally. The Talmud teaches that when a great crowd of Jews assemble together, we say, Baruch Chacham Harazim. Blessed is the knower of secrets. This blessing reminds us that each person in a crowd is a story and a mystery. Each person brings absolute value and individuality to the community. So we rejoice with every new congregant and with the continued participation of those who have been here for years. The unique attributes and experiences of every member and every family adds to our richness and our texture. Numbers and diversity are our strength, but they also represent a challenge. How do we ensure connectedness so crucial to a congregation? First, we recognize that despite that diversity, we do have something in common. Every one of you is bound to the other because of a shared decision, and I hope a shared desire. The decision was to belong, and the desire is to support the sacred mission of the Jewish people. Sociologist Robert Wuthnow differentiates communities from assemblies. People assemble for concerts, political debates, and marches, he says. Anything with a common end in mind. But the assembled crowd comes and goes. It has no sense of permanence. We do not actually belong to an assembly, but we can belong to a community, which presupposes a supportive set of interpersonal relations. This is not the first time Temple Emanu-El has seen tremendous growth. In 1972, Harold Cohen was temple president. And there's a story that at an Oneg Shabbat, he experienced an embarrassing moment. He went up to a member to introduce himself, asking if the member was new. The congregant replied, "Must you ask me that every year?" This experience was a pointed indication of how the temple had grown and how difficult it had become to keep in meaningful contact. With this in mind, in 1974, the Chavurah movement was created at our temple. Its purpose was the formation of small groups to study, celebrate, socialize, and enjoy Jewish living together. It was extremely successful, with many of the Chavurot still meeting today. With over 150 new families, we once again look to the Chavurah model, but with a new twist. In early 2026, we will launch our circles, small congregant-led groups around shared interests, whether cooking, hiking, or studying together. These groups will create spaces for deeper connections within our larger temple family. And while it is on the synagogue leadership and staff to build structures to help facilitate deeper connections to our community, I also want to encourage you to actively participate. The more you attend services, the more you volunteer, the more you join us for events or pre-onegs or learning opportunities, the more connected you will feel to the temple and to the people who dwell among us. In fact, the Hebrew word for synagogue is Beit Knesset. In English, Beit Knesset is better translated as a house of gathering. How special that Judaism's most sacred spaces and most cherished moments are rooted in the idea of gathering. The vibrancy of the Jewish community hinges on individuals coming together. Only in partnership can we develop a dynamic home of gathering, learning, and prayer. The synagogue has a unique role in the life of an American Jew because it's best positioned to provide these relationships. No institution is better equipped to create a sense of identity for the seeker, an awareness of spirituality for the God wrestler, and a place for sanctuary and healing for those in need of solace. Our sacred community will always be measured, not by our building, but in the holy acts and relationships that connect us to one another and to God. And yet, being in community is not always easy. Sometimes it's hard to connect with one another because we are set in our ways, we don't listen, we think the other person is wrong. One area where that challenge is most visible is Israel. I'll speak more about Israel on Kol Nidre, but this morning I want to acknowledge something plainly. Some congregants have resigned their membership because they felt we were too pro-Israel, and others have resigned because they felt we were too pro-Palestinian. Our clergy reaches out, inviting conversation. Sometimes people accept, and most of the time, they don't. What I believe is that Temple Emanu-El must continue to be a place where we can stay at the table even when we disagree, where listening is as sacred as speaking, and not just about Israel. Immigration, reproductive rights, free speech, democracy, all of these can divide us. But being in community does not mean uniformity. It means being willing to sit together, to listen thoughtfully, to be challenged, and to challenge in return. That is what it means to be part of a sacred community. The foundation of Temple Emanu-El was built on conversation. Rabbi Spice Handler had the delicate task of weaving together people from different backgrounds and expectations. Most of the early members didn't know much about Reform Judaism, yet he believed it could be their home, and he invited them into dialogue, encouraging them to listen to one another and to find common ground. His vision of a kihila, a community, where all Jews could belong, where religious, cultural, social, and philanthropic life would be bound together. The questions in 1950 weren't simple ones. Should people wear kippot? Should we observe one day of Rosh Hashanah or two? How much Hebrew should fill the service? These were deeply debated, and what carried the day was not uniformity, but respect. Hearing the other person's perspective and working towards a balance that honored many voices. In the end, kippots were worn on the pulpits, but not required in the pews. Rosh Hashanah was observed for 2 full days, and Hebrew was given a prominent place in the service. At that time, this was remarkable for a Reform synagogue. But the real miracle was not in the decisions themselves. It was in the conversations that made them possible. The same spirit of dialogue and understanding has sustained Temple Emanu-El for 75 years, and I hope for the next 75 years as well. If disagreements within our walls contest us, so too do the forces beyond our walls. For even as we wrestle with one another in love, we're also confronted with a world that too often greets us with suspicion or hostility. And while we face internal challenges, we also face external challenges. Anti-Semitism in our community, in our nation, and in the world is something that we confront on a daily basis. Coming into this building with bollards, security guards, and the Westfield police is just a reminder of the world we live in. Once again, this is not new to Temple Emanu-El. Unfortunately, the history of the greater Westfield community has not always been so hospitable to the Jewish community. When the temple was seeking land for our synagogue, residents boycotted Jewish merchants in town. In the late 1960s and 70s, temple members faced harassments as courts debated the legality of requiring Jewish students to participate in Westfield High School's Christmas pageant. When we tried to expand the parking lot in the early 2000s, at town meetings, people used terms like "those people" to describe our community. Today, Greater Westfield is more Jewish than ever, but we still face anti-Semitism. Our children experience swastikas and slurs in our schools. Our college students are harassed at their universities. The level of anti-Semitism is not tolerable. It's heartbreaking. Earlier this year, a non-Jewish parent contacted me after their child got into serious trouble for saying something anti-Semitic at school. The parents told me about the steps that they had already taken. There were real consequences, and they spent time teaching their child about the impact of his words. I told them how impressed I was with their responses, But I did suggest one more step. I told them to bring their child to Shabbat. I wanted him to see that Judaism is not about persecution and suffering, but also about joy. And they attended our Shabbat service. I believe that is the best way we can fight anti-Semitism. By being proud Jews, by sharing the love with people of other faiths, by opening up our Shabbat dinner tables. We show up, we share our Judaism. That's something we do well at Temple Emanu-El. That's something we will continue to do. "75 years ago, Rabbi Spice Handler told our congregation, 'This is the house you are building to God. You are a part of its beauty and its glory. This is your spiritual home.' His words echo the Torah, 'V'shachanti b'tocham.' Let them build a sanctuary that I may dwell among them, not within the walls, but among the people, among us." On this day, we celebrate 75 years. Let us recommit ourselves to that vision, to be a community where God dwells in our learning and our praying, in our disagreements and our connections, in our strength against hatred, and our joy in living Jewish lives. May this year ahead be one of courage, of connection, and of blessing for our temple, for the Jewish people, and for all who dwell among us.